the imagination in a group. Okay, slideshow. Okay, so, dream weaving method emerged out of a method which I developed to use clinically because practically I am a clinician myself, and I work mainly with one-to-one adults in therapy. And I had developed a way of working with the imagination on a one-to-one level, which is called Imaginative Movement Therapy, which is a facilitative and relational form of therapeutic guided imagination, which has been based but has been updated from Jung's classical method of active imagination. When I ask someone to close their eyes and to imagine something, whatever they tell me, it is called the imaginative experience, or otherwise I tend to call it a waking dream, which in my case, I help the patient or the client to be more immersed in their imagination by giving them small prompts, but very little, so that I don't interfere with whatever they are imagining. So then I developed this method and I tried to apply it to a group context, because I believe the imagination not only bridges the mind and the body, but also the person with the social. And I have mainly two methods of using IMT, Imaginative Movement Therapy. One is the therapist will start by giving an initial stimulus to a group of people, and they stay silent. They do not share with me there and then whatever they are imagining. And this, in a way, defeats the purpose a little bit of IMT, Imaginative Movement Therapy, in which I ask the patient or the client to share whatever appears in front of their eyes and to share it with me in my presence. So this is what makes IMT emphasizes the here and now. So I developed this method called dream weaving, where dreaming is removed from the private individual realm and becomes of the group, as the waking dream is done by the group itself. And I will be explaining more in detail how. So group dream weaving offers, because I belong to a Jungian school of thought in psychotherapy, with another group methodology in which we're working with the collective unconscious or the group mind. So group dream weaving helps us practitioners and even other people who are not necessarily practitioners to understand more what is happening, what are the dynamics of the group which are happening on an unconscious level. So I also think that dream weaving is very much important nowadays, especially that we're experiencing a lot of anxiety because we're living in troubled times. And I believe that in troubled times, we must place ourselves not in the mainstream of life, but in the timeless weave of myth and dreams. And I will say why. Dream weaving helps us to restore our psychic numbness and dulled feelings in the face of the troubled world we're living. And in order to restore our psychic numbness, we need the imagination, which is needed to be able to respond morally and to be able to be more reflective before we act. Hence, I believe dream weaving provides participants with a way of weaving a sense of communitas in the challenging spirit of the times we are living in, as we find new potentialities and resources in the group's spirit of the depths. So let me explain a little bit what is dream weaving, how does it actually work? So dream weaving is done in a group setting. People sit in a circle. One is invited and the group is invited to have their eyes closed. The therapist starts, or the facilitator gives an initial stimulus and invites the first participants to start a waking dream after a brief relaxation. The first weaver dreams awake, and shares whatever comes in front of their eyes. So in a way, they are not making it up. The ego is not in control, but allows things to emerge. What surprises them? I like the word they channel. Until the group facilitator feels one can invite another one to continue the waking dream narrative where the previous client, traveler, or weaver has left it, which then, like a snowball, it grows as it moves. I like this old proverb because, in a way, it also captures the essence of dream weaving. Begin to weave, as one participants begin to weave, and the divine will provide the thread. In case the group somehow waking dream will become constellated on its own from the different participants taking place. Maybe one may wonder, what is the connection of dreaming with weaving in dream weaving? The art of weaving and dream weaving are both about myth-making and storytelling, emerging from the group psyche, which evokes the oral tradition. Weaving has long been a metaphor for the creation of something other than cloth, whether a story, to weave a story, a plot, or the word. The goddess of weaving is usually the goddess of creation in various cultures, like in South American cultures, you have Ishkel. Greek uh, mythology, we have Arachne, Ariadne, Frigg in Scandinavia, Fudalo in Philippines, and in many others. Weaving tells a story. The act of weaving in itself with tells a story. Rugs or tapestries are written pages. In their maze of design, there is a symbolic language. Some of it, in its ceaseless transmission through the centuries, has unhappily been lost. The symbol which the artisan's fingers weave into the material is the projection not only of their subconscious motives, but also of their people, their land, and their time. Hence, weavers become poets, making the invisible visible like poets do. I like this quote from a letter of Van Gogh when he was for some time in Neuenen in Netherlands to his brother Theo, where he says, the man he was captured both by miners and by weavers, and he was taken in by the claustrophobic place in which they work, and he wanted to depict them in a almost Rembrandt-esque feel. The man from the depths, from the abyss, the profundis, that is the miner. The other, with the faraway look, almost daydreaming, almost a sleepwalker, that is the weaver. And it is one of a series of paintings on weavers which Van Gogh is known for. So what is the relationship of our ears and hands in dream weaving in our method? In dream weaving, we touch each other with our words. We hand on the other like a relay race, a part of the weave, hoping they were all ears to receive our own bit. Then later on, we are invited to write it down and draw creatively the woven story. Like in weaving, when one dreams and or shares a dream, he or she creates new ties, knots, and networks between people, dreamer and listener, and also within oneself, between the ego and the unconscious. Hence, weaving becomes a language that connects our inner and outer worlds, crafting each dream weave into a story. Stories that keep us connected, creating communities. So as I said earlier, dream weaving provides another way of working analytically besides other known Jungian group approaches, like, for example, social dreaming matrix, which is used a lot in the Jungian world, especially before conferences, in which one shares their dreams and the participants kind of reassociate to the dream shared, or someone else will remember another part of the dream which resonates with the dream shared. which was invented by Lawrence in the 1980s at the Tavistock Institute, which in itself, it's also a way of knowing the unconscious, but it is not, the emphasis is not on the group therapy, but on the matrix in which the group is, uh, is immersed. There are other group approaches which, in a way, kind of have applied Jung's method of active imagination to a group context, such as working with the body in a group called authentic movement, scent play. I think most of you are familiar with scent play, and Eva Pattis has used a series of invited, usually children or refugees. They are given scent trays in a room, and they all work accompanied by a witness, and they all do their own scent work individually, but somehow they're contained by the group itself and also by the facilitators who serve as witnesses to their work. There is group painting therapy and dream analytic group work, amongst other approaches. So dream weaving is my addition to these known approaches. In dream weaving, a Jungian group form of active imagination, the focus is on the unconscious interactions between the participants. Through the imagination, the individual becomes aware of the group mind and the collective waking dream or matrix in which they are immersed in nonetheless. The symbolic material coming out from the bits of fantasies shared by the participants, they emerge as a third factor, forming the center of the Jungian group process between group members and therapist. This methodology is different to self-experience groups known as encounter groups, where the conscious interactions between members are studied and reflected upon. So let's now go slowly into the procedure and the protocol of the dream weaving session. In using imaginative movement therapy, IMT, within a group setting, one person is invited to start a waking dream, who is referred to as the dream weaver or traveler, following a stimulus given by the group facilitator. So, if I can choose, for example, imagine that you are in a public square. That could be the verbal stimulus which I share. And then I invite one person to start to see what comes to mind in response to my stimulus. And I will also invite them to immerse themselves and not only see it from a distance, to be present in that oniric space. And I will also slowly prompt them in order to help them feel more at ease in their imaginative experience. The group members sit in a circle with their eyes closed. Before the therapist guide shares the verbal stimulus, or it could be a pictorial stimulus, which we can call it ductus, a journeying through art image, which is very similar to what in German is called Andachtsbilder, which is related very much to devotional imagery used for meditation purposes, on which participants are called to start to imagine and weave a narrative, referred to as the dream weaving narrative, one by one. The participants choose a number randomly, which give a sense of order to the narrative. So before we start, if we are meeting face-to-face, I invite, usually I have numbers which are face down, like written on cards, and they choose one. And then when I start number one to start, number one will start. Then when it's time for number two, randomly number two will continue the dream weaving exercise. So number cards with face down can be used and chosen by each participant. So there is an order principle. At the same time, there is the open principle, because the imagination is not controlled by the therapist, but it comes and it emerges through the participant or the dream weaver. So there is a tension between an ordered principle and an open principle. The therapist guide, after a brief relaxation, can choose the initial stimulus to the group to start the dream weaving circle. As I said, it can be both verbal or pictorial. And the choice, especially in the beginning, it needs some thinking. And many times it has to resonate to the group, to the client group you're working with. Usually in the beginning, it is better to choose neutral stimuli. Example, imagine that you're exploring a meadow or walking along a stream. I call these horizontal stimuli because horizontal stimuli are less traumatic. The guide helps Weaver to stay immersed by some prompting that the therapist guide is trained to do. The initial stimulus depends on the type of group one is engaged in. If one wants to use it in a support group for bereaved or domestic violence survivors, the therapist guide can choose an archetypal motive or something from the tarot cards that responds to the theme of the group. Example, the Tree of Life, or an ancient surviving fortress or building. So there, the art of the therapist using the intuition comes into play. If you are using this methodology with the same group over time, ending images of one session or one dream circle, dream weaving circle, can be continued in the next dream session. So then the image is coming from what the participants have imagined themselves. So you are not giving it to them, but you just continue the weave as if you're weaving a piece of cloth. So this in the second dream weaving session or circle, you will continue where you left. Encountered in the group dream weaving narrative may continue to be explored in the next session and presented as an initial stimulus. In this sense, one continues to dream weave the same piece of cloth, giving the group experience a deeper and more personal experience to the dreaming group. In the latter case, the stimuli, the verbal stimuli, I call it as being group ego syntonic. That is, it is coming from the group itself and not from the therapist or the analyst or the facilitator. The group ends with a narrative thread which has been woven together by the participants. And the narrative is called the dream weaving narrative, which is written there and then while it is happening. So one of the roles of the therapist, besides prompting and observing what is happening, is also to write or else record the dream weaving narrative which is unfolding there and then. Each participant turn lasts a few minutes, but it depends on the size of the group. If you have, for example, 8, usually each participant will have about 4 to 5 minutes. It must be enough for the participants to say a few sentences and to develop the piece of narrative. The whole dream weaving session takes from 30 to 45 minutes. As the time to end the group dream weaving approaches, the therapist guide can inform the final weaver that a few seconds are left to prepare the final weaver to tie a simple knot to the woven piece being done. In the beginning, each participant will only do one round, and the more experienced groups can have 2 rounds of group dream weaving, with shorter time for each participant's turn in the latter case. However, when there are 2 rounds, it tends to be much more intense. From the verbal to the creative. The therapist guide also asks the participants to share the main feeling or feelings after they open their eyes. So in a way, kind of you ask them as if to check out after they have opened their eyes and what they are left with. Once the dream weaving narrative ends, then the therapist slowly reads again the narrative to the whole group, and you present it to them as if a mother has given birth. You present the baby to the group because it is their baby, it is our baby, and invites them again to draw or sketch the part of the group dream woven narrative woven by themselves. When the participants are ready, the therapist guide puts them in the middle and they form a woven visual dream known as dream weaving carpet or tapestry. And these are some examples of what participants draw their own bit of their own imaginative experience, and they put it together, and together it forms a dream weaving carpet. In the final phase, the therapist guide invites the participants to look at the carpet and to reflect on the visual and spoken narrative and amplify and to associate to the content of the narrative and images encountered in the group dream. The whole session takes from 1.5 hours to 2 hours, depending on the number of participants. If the group is bigger, 2 or 4 participants can serve as observers and sit outside the circle in a fishbowl setting. And the observers, of course, will be given a role. They will, especially depends on the level of participants you're working with. They can observe what is happening. They can observe their own somatic responses. They can observe what images they have. They can observe the flow of the dream, the doctors of the dream weaving narrative. So you can kind of give also these roles before the dream circle starts. And then, of course, you invite also the observers to share after the kind of the dream weavers share their associations to the carpet or to the dream narrative. The observers also work is also very important. When working online, participants can also send the written waking dream narrative and drawings to the facilitator, and then the facilitator can collate everything and send it to everyone for further reflection in time for the next session. Some, from my experience, use AI to turn the written narrative of the woven waking dream. So let's summarize the steps of the dream weaving. There is the preparatory phase, there is the dream weaving phase, and then there is the creative elaboration and integration phase. And I will say something about each phase. And the preparatory phase includes the ordering of participants' position, the giving of the numbers, or else you can call out and invite who would like to go first, who would like to go second, if you're a small group. Then there's the brief relaxation, where you kind of invite everyone to close their eyes, to get in touch with their body, to follow their breathing. And when they are ready, you will tell them in a few minutes, I'm going to ask participant number 1 kind of to imagine what comes in front of their eyes and respond to the stimulus that I will be giving soon. It is important that you don't kind of fire immediately whatever comes to your mind, but wait until something surprises you. And it is important that you see yourself in the oniric landscape that you're in. I will be at some points guiding you with some prompts. And then when, after some time, I will stop you and the next one will continue and continue the story or the dots from where the other has left. And then, of course, you say the stimulus. Third is the reading of instructions to group and the giving of the stimulus, as I said. Then is the weaving narrative phase, dream weaving in the group, the actual experience. Then you do the emotional checkout once it's finished. And then the reading of the final dream narrative to the whole group. That is the weaving narrative phase. In the third stage, which is the elaboration and integration phase, you invite the individuals to draw the woven waking dream. Everyone will draw their own, not the whole bit. And then you invite them to put it in the middle. That's number 2, making the dream carpet or tapestry. And then the third, you open the floor where everyone, observers and dream weavers, together we associate and amplify the images encountered and what they can say about our group. Usually if it's a support group, a cancer support group, or it can be a group of students, you can also amplify and make association to the experience of the group itself. Sometimes even people amplify on what is happening in the collective as well. So again, it depends on what images emerge. Taking on the other openly. This methodology aims to create a sense of openness to the other. As they listen attentively to the other, as participants are called to take on the narrative from the one before them. And this looks easy, but it is very challenging because they have to, when they hear the first verbal stimulus, probably everybody starts to imagine. But you have to tell them that they need to listen to what the first one or the one before them had said and to continue where this person left. And this can be challenging to take on the other. This defies the usual enactment of our routine practices of communication in our world today, where usually one finds it easier to talk than to listen. And sometimes one goes even far as ignoring or silencing the other, as he or she failed to recognize the speaker as a knower. In group dream weaving, it is not about the individual starting something, but about continuing something, taking on from the other, listening with a third ear. The sensory motor component of image perception, together with the jointly evoked sensory and emotional reactions, allow the beholder to feel the narrative in an embodied manner, what Vittorio Gallese speaks of embodied simulation. So dream weaving can be seen as a response to the individualization of society and the homeless self as it offers a sense of community. The group becomes a matrix, a symbol of the mother and of the family, where a sense of intimacy and belonging can occur. This is one of the group's main functions overall. Again, using Vittorio Gallese's term, dream weaving offers or better creates a we-centric space. Not an individual space, but a we-centric space. And as a result, it heals disconnections. It heals not only personal dissociation, but collective dissociations. And weaving in itself, the art of weaving, I like this point because it again kind of amplifies on this theme of repair. We weave to put ourselves back together again. We weave the pieces of us that are shattered and broken. We weave because the rhythm, the flow, the feel, the pattern, and solidity comforts us. We weave because our body tells us to. We weave to breathe more slowly, more deeply. We weave because the threads that create the strands of our life need a language. And this also reminds me of certain patterns and certain cultures which are passed from one tradition to another. And sometimes these patterns used to identify a certain village or country, but maybe that village is no longer there. It has been destroyed by war. So weaving is also used in occupational therapy, in mental health, for example, because this part of putting things together, it's helping a person to connect with oneself and to connect, to be in touch with the wounds and to make something out of them. So I feel this metaphor of weaving very strongly. Something for oneself too in dream weaving. The dream weaving method also provides participants to reflect on what comes up in the group personally through their own imaginative experience part, so to say, especially by reflecting on their own piece of dream weaving, which touches on their own personal complexes. Each participant can also relate to how he or she contributes to emerging collective unconscious themes. Application of the dream weaving method. The dream weaving methodology can be applied both as an ongoing therapeutic group methodology or else as an intervention exercise before a conference, as a session in a support group, for example, of an ongoing support group. As a therapeutic group method. As a therapeutic group methodology, it can take the shape of an ongoing group, which meets, for example, every week or fortnight or every month for a time limited number of sessions, one of 6 or 8 sessions, for example. You can have a dream weaving circle. You can have 6 dream weaving circles. So you can have a bottega of 6 sessions, for example. It is also useful to have a co-therapist guide to facilitate an ongoing group, especially when you do it face-to-face. Sometimes having the co-therapist present can help, like you focus more on what is happening. The co-therapist maybe will be focusing more on the writing the dream narrative. So the co-therapist will support you as well in that role of a facilitator. A first stimulus can be chosen or can arise spontaneously by the first traveler, and the next stimuli are usually a continuation of an image found in the narrative as the dream weaving narrative ends, as I have explained previously. This ensures a sense of continuity, deepening, and allowing time to participants to allow the group's unconscious to speak. However, dream weaving can also be used as an intervention to work with a particular group, such as a group of students. For instance, dream weaving can be used as an intervention to get the students to explore how they are being affected by the course they are doing and the way it is being managed. And I will give a theoretical example in the end. It provides an excellent way of giving feedback in a very creative way, which allows everyone to go beyond the conscious attitude, but to listen to what arises from their unconscious. Dream weaving can also be inserted in support groups. For example, sometimes you invite a speaker, or sometimes you talk about a particular theme. Sometimes you want to do a dream weaving session as an intervention exercise, depending on the theme of the group, such as working with cancer patients, bereavement groups, addiction groups, etc. Also, before the start of a teaching weekend or a training conference, it is also a way of holding the conference together and to see. It's very much like social dreaming, but I feel this is more in line with Jung's active imagination, because we're not using nocturnal dreams, but we're using waking dreams. So now I will share a vignette, a very short vignette, because it's also interesting to have time for some questions and discussion. So this is, the verbal stimulus was given to a group of students. And the verbal stimulus was on a boat fishing. So after the relaxation exercise, I invite everyone to sit in a circle. The observers will sit in the fishbowl concentric circle outside. And I will give the roles to the observers to observe how they feel, whatever they observe in the narrative. And of course, we give the numbers to the participants who will go first, second, and then I will call. The first weaver will start, and they will start the imaginative experience, they will narrative that comes in front of their eyes. So the first one said, more or less, this is a summary, of course, because even though there are more than, not a lot of sentences, but it's definitely more than that. This is the gist of it. I am fishing with grandpa. So he's saying it in the present. I am 6 or 7 years old. I catch an octopus, killed by grandpa, and feel scared at first, but now it is dead. We will have the octopus later with pasta, but now waves start to dwell, and it starts to rain, and I am feeling scared and unsafe. The third weaver. I am feeling nauseated from the waves. Grandpa panics or is panicking and is putting on life jackets, and we jump off. Another weaver. We are swimming to the shore towards an island which seems abandoned. We rest, then explore, walk in the woods with a lot of trees, and see and hear different birds. We continue to walk to find some food and a place to seek shelter. Since we do not have gathering skills, it is not easy, but somehow with the help of grandpa, we manage to find something and to create fire and to cook. We try to make our way back to where we came from, but unfortunately grandpa slipped and injured his leg. I try to help grandpa. I find some people nearby who try to help, but although they help to cover his legs, we have not stopped his bleeding. So this was the group waking dream. It's a summary, of course, but this is the gist of it. And again, if I have to invite, you don't know anything about this group except they were students. What do you make of this narrative? What strikes you in this narrative? What um, do you think is emerging from this simple narrative? Anyone would like to have a go at this? Yes.
Well, there seems, just very, just only seeing it briefly, there seems to be sort of darkness and lightness in the contributions.
Mm-hmm.
Some people um, take it to a dark place, and then other people pick it up
Mm-hmm.
and say, well, actually, we were able to make fire and have food.
Yes.
So there's sort of darkness and lightness interweaving throughout.
Throughout.
Yeah,
Okay. Very good point, Lorna. Thanks for sharing.
thank you.
Someone else? What do you think is going on with these students?
I don't know why I get the sense of unresolved childhood trauma there that is probably familial in nature in the family.
Mhm. How do you think this connects? Yes, the element of trauma, how do you think connects to the group's experience of students, of being students?
Mm. Like the experience of being the student, you mean?
The experience is,
The experience of being the students?
yes, yes, the experience, they are students, they are a group of students,
Hmm.
adult students, but they
Yeah.
kind of, they came up with this narrative and they're reflecting on their own
Hmm.
experience of being in a particular
Hmm.
course. So yes, you touched on something of unresolved trauma or something.
Yeah. Unresolved childhood trauma. I don't know why. I mean, you can't really point at it, but there's some form of guilt. Killing an
Mhm.
octopus, cooking an octopus.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I don't know. It's just
Fantastic. I think, Rula,
yeah.
you don't know the context, so of course it's difficult. But I
Mm,
am sharing it because even though we don't know,
mm,
many times we pick up a lot.
Mm.
Of course, we have to be
mm.
careful not to interpret. In dream weaving, we don't,
Right.
in a Freudian sense, we amplify. So this
Mm-hmm.
was a group of psychiatric trainees in their first year. And I was invited to teach psychoanalytic content to them because they are very much into the biological model of psychiatry. So I try to come in with my old psychoanalytical hat and to give them some ideas. And that was also kind of, I was told to teach them something about symbolic material, how to work with symbolic materials in dreams and symptoms of mental disorders and what they could mean, etc., etc. So I used dream weaving so that they will also be in touch with symbolic material and we'll look at it together in order to make sense of this symbolic imagination. And from what they gathered, from what they opened up, the course itself was not very much contained. It started on a good footing, but then some teachers kind of had resigned. There was very little commitment to the teaching. And as you can see, this came out very quickly. They were on the boat. They were held by the grandpa. But all of a sudden, waves came. They ended up in the sea. They ended up on their own. And being on their own, where they had to do a lot of learning themselves, wasn't easy. But somehow, as I think Lorna said, they still found a way. So they could speak about their insecurities. And again, the trauma, as you very much pointed, they were a little bit terrified of um, they were terrified, of course, to enter the role of being a psychiatric trainee. It's no joke when you're 25. So there is this fear. There is also, um, am I um, am I the right person for this job? And then again, the projection of being taken care of by someone, an adult figure, they were projecting so much and waiting for the leader to show them the way. All of a sudden, there's a problem with the leader. They end up being abandoned. And being abandoned, they were angry, they were disappointed. And also at the same time, being on their own, they had to find a way. So the dream weaving narrative also points to resources. So together we looked at, in a metaphorical sense, what were the resources they needed to continue further in their training. So the dream itself, the waking dream itself, also indicated something. uh, Finding, being creative to what are your associations when you said you were able to create fire and to cook. So how can you find a way to learn when there is nobody giving you the tools? You have to make the tools yourself. So was a way of opening up the space, and it was easy and quickly how they, for me, I was a stranger to them, but without asking them anything, they shared so much about what they were going through. And also, not only it became a rant coming from an ego, but it actually was expressing their real emotions. It was expressing their real uncertainties, and also looking at something else, like in a Jungian way, there's the teleological component, kind of what um, can be positive, what resources can come out. Of course, this was in a nutshell. So I am giving you, and also at the same time, the group experience itself. Usually, there is when there is usually trouble with the parents, siblings can either kind of really become close or else they become big rivals, no? And there's, of course, students are very competitive. So the dream weaving method also gave the participants, again, a space where they could allow themselves to be with each other, which, of course, in a competitive training course, sometimes there's a lot of this kind of problem. So um, I've I felt, and I have tried this with several groups when I'm teaching in organizations, and you can do it with an organization, and they really express what they are going through. So it can be applied also on an organizational level. So forming a dream weaving bottega. So with some training and supervision, one can start a dream weaving bottega in one's community by proposing to meet for a series of dream weaving circle sessions once a week or once a fortnight. And you can do it online or you can do it face to face, which is better. And you'll be engaging in another form, in a supportive form of activism, which I call dream activism. So again, I like this kind of, again, kind of such initiatives in certain communities. Could be a place of work, it could be um, just proposing it in your local council. Of course, you need some training, but if you're a practitioner, of course, you can also take the gist of it and try something similar. Of course, supervision and reflecting about it also helps so that one can manage it better. Conclusion, dream weaving creates something new in between participant dream weavers as they continue to trust and weave from their souls something which belongs to the collective or group as a whole. The travelers or dream weavers, they trip or journey in fantasy flights and access new meanings and layers of their group mind. The final dream weave or tapestry or carpet can be looked at together and witnessed like a mandala, and new revelations can continue to be teased out as they help to center and ground the group members. There's a publication, um, a recent publication about the method of Persian carpets, dream weaving, and oniric journeying, Psychological Perspective Journal. Thanks for listening, and for Rula for your kind invitation. And if you want more information, that is my Facebook page and also my my website of Imaginative Movement Therapy, where you find more information, also how to contact me if you need to. So I will stop sharing now, and I will have maybe a few minutes for questions or reactions or whatever you want to call it.
Sure, thank you so much, Leonard. This was really brilliant and a very, very fascinating technique and method. Yeah, I mean, we do have lots of comments in the chat box. Let's see who would like to invite anyone who would like to say something. Just feel free to open your mic or raise your hand. Right. In the meantime, maybe we can check out some of the chat box comments here. But for some reason, Sarah, are they clearer on your part? I don't know why. Finding it hard to scroll up.
Oh, sure. I think, well, the first comment I think was when you were asking about the reflection on the exercise that the students did, and Maria, who unfortunately had to leave, but she said handing over authority is what I hear. So when she was listening to that narrative about about going fishing, that was what came to her.
Yes.
And she says, fantastic method, thank you. I have to go, but we'll watch and play with the Dreamweaver in my mother group. Thank you. So, and lots of comments about great technique. Thank you for sharing. Excellent example. Fascinating new approach. Can't wait to try it out. So lots of comments. Thank you for being here.
Of course, I think speaking about it is one thing. I think experiencing it in person is another. And again, as I said, the role of the therapist guide and prompting, you have to be very careful that they will continue on whatever where the other has left, because the tendency is, of course, sometimes it's like when you're weaving. The Native Americans have the idea of a spirit line when they're weaving their carpets. That the weaver now has ended the work and another work will start. Sometimes you might also want to look at how things join together. Sometimes when there is tension between the members, these you can how the next weaver will touch very little about what has been said by the previous one, even though you tell them. So maybe the rebellious one, maybe something will come out there. But on the whole, as I said, it's as I said, the dream narrative, it doesn't come from the person if they allow themselves. It emerges in between them. So the waking dream is not being done. They are just channeling it. And that is how, when you have a more advanced group where you allow. And again, it ties with the theme of weaving. In certain cultures, for example, in the Philippines, you have the Boli culture. And they weave a certain material called nalak, which is usually red, white, and black. And the design is woven not from the mind, but the design appears in their dreams first. When the design appears in their dreams, the Navajo people also had similar ideas. So it's weaving from your dreams. So again, it's not the participant who is weaving it, but allowing himself or herself for the dream to unfold through them. And this is when you have a more kind of regular group of people who are ready to immerse themselves in it. And as I said, there's the first round, The first round, I think it's good enough. The second round, it can be a bit too much. But yes, it depends also on how many sessions if you're working over a year, for example, and you know each other, then you can do that. So we have to be careful and um, and also to be responsible for, that participants have um, a safe enough experience as well.
Mhm.
So I don't know other comments or
Well, I
questions. Yeah.
see Jocelyn has her
Jocelyn.
hand up.
Hello, I'm a social worker. I'm trained in narrative practices. It reminds me quite a bit of definitional ceremonies that we do in narrative practices. And I work in Indigenous communities here, so we're very familiar with working with dreams. I'm really curious to know if you offer any online certifications or courses.
Yes, I usually do masterclass and an advanced masterclass, but it depends if number of people. But from time to time, this is the first. Last year I did a couple of them. This year this is the first time because I was teaching more IMT. But yes, if there is need, you can contact me and I'll keep you in the loop. And um, as I said, if you are a professional yourself, it's kind of you can not only, but um, and again, you already have experience with similar practices. So for you, it might be more in line and you can feel more comfortable in such a thing as well.
Thank you.
Welcome.
There are two questions in the chat. The first is from Jane. It says, how do you deal with an over-competitive student that dominates the narrative? And how mid-exercise do you get input, popcorn, timed, etc.?
And I said that the trick of this method is because you have to stop them. Because it's not about you. You only have a few minutes. And then again, and this you tell them before, this is not, you speak about it when you are setting the scene, no? Before you start, you're giving the numbers, you're explaining that they have to close their eyes, that you will give the first participant the stimulus while the others have to listen, and you will have to explain all that. So that in itself, I think, contains, as I said, the rebellious might be a little bit by shifting and not sticking to what was before. But as I said, it still somehow um, finds a way. Sometimes even the therapist is imagined. For example, in one group, I became the black man with the mustache in the narrative of the. So in a way, there was a transference being done of the therapist as well. So um, yes, I think that's what I can say. So you have to stop them, and then as well, when they start to interpret, you make sure that they don't interpret, but they share their own feelings, they share their associations. So like that, they are not hurting anyone, and this doesn't belong to one person, but to the group. I don't know if I answered your question.
It wasn't mine, but I hope so. I think so. Um, but yes, so Jane's giving a thumbs up.
Okay.
Another question that we have is from Ojana. What is the worst case scenario of this method going wrong or being unsafe?
Yes. Yes, I think, as I said, when you go with the second round, when they are not ready, that can be a little bit of a vertigo experience. So you have to make sure that they can take the time to be, because again, even for the observers, they are listening, but they have to sit there for 45 minutes and they just have to listen. Not just, but they have to listen. They are participating, but not directly, indirectly, although they have a very important role. So that's one. And from my experience when I did the research lab and also the second session, if they are not ready, they can find it a bit too much and they can even get tired physically. So they're involved in it. So I think you also have to make sure that after 30 minutes, people can, and you do it slowly. Even though maybe the first time there is the ego speaking a lot rather than they allowing, I would allow it the first time. The second time, my role would be to encourage them to speak in the first person, to give very little prompts like, do you want to sit down? Do you want to speak to this figure? Do you want to touch something, etc., etc. That is the role, and there are of course some things the therapist guide has to be aware when they're giving prompts, and that comes from usually knowing from imaginative movement therapy. When I do it with my client, I have a whole theory about how to prompt, how to lead a client further without by being supportive without being too much. Yeah. So, but there's a lot of theory about that.
Great, thank you. And we have another hand up. If you want to unmute, Ein.
Thanks, Sarah. I'm on. Yes, thank you. I'm really interested too in the dream weaving, and I'd love if you are doing training, I'd love to hear about our masterclass. My question was a bit like the last comment in the chat, in terms of maybe re-traumatizing someone, even an observer that's sitting outside. If something is shared or revealed that could kind of touch and awaken an old trauma. I work as a drama therapist, so I was trying to think of what safety would be in place. As a drama therapist, we use character and role and story. So the fictional element gives a distance. And then
Yes.
as a story or a character, there's this de-rolling afterwards, which is,
Yes.
quite profound as well. So I was just wondering, again, I see so much in this I'd love to use. Just want to know
Yes.
more about keeping people safe.
As you said, in dream, similar to drama or psychodrama, again, they are using metaphor. They're working in metaphor. The observers as well, since they're focusing on their own reactions, again, it's not theirs to some extent. They are witnessing something. It's like you're witnessing a tragedy or a play or something. Of course, that might affect you. And what I also encourage is them to do the drawing after. So the observers as well can also draw, because somehow the drawing can also offer a form of kind of a cathartic expression or a containment through another modality, not only a felt modality, but they're bringing it out. So then they can look at it themselves. And when I ask the participants also to reflect on their own bit, the same thing can also be done for the observer. So how they were touched. And of course, you're available even after the session if they want to speak to you or to speak more about, or if they have a therapist, they can take that to their therapist. And yes, once the waking dream narrative is woven, and usually you either call the participant one by one, or as you have a bell and the next one will go. The same thing, once the bell ends in the end, the knot is tied, they go back to themselves now. They are not the dream weaver anymore. And then they become the person who will comment on that. It's not theirs, but it came through them, but it's not theirs. And I think this is the difference between your own bit and it is going through you. So again, there's less identification. If it makes, if it helps in some ways to clarify your question, Amy.
Absolutely. Thank you. And what came to my mind was, I'm not dreaming, I'm being dreamt. So this sense of it coming. Yeah. Lovely.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, lovely. One more question in the chat from Rana. What are some of the challenges for the facilitator to build a summarization of the weaving at the end?
Yes, as I said, to write is very difficult. So sometimes It's good either to record. Of course, you need to ask permission that you're going to record, and even if you're going to write. But sometimes, again, writing can be challenging, and for different reasons. Some because, for example, when I work online, I have people from different cultures, and not everyone is versed in English. So sometimes I miss certain things. And then when I read it, they will correct me. Or if there's an observer who is writing with me, the observer will tell me it was like this, not like that. That's one. Some have different accents. For example, I don't know. Once I had a person from Scotland, a very Scottish accent, which I couldn't make sense of. So that can be challenging. Yeah, these are, but again, if you have someone to help you, then it is easier. And another drawback of writing is because I also, from my experience, when I am facilitating a dream weaving, I like to look at the faces. And when you're doing it online, that's even better because you can see the expression on the facial expression and non-verbals of the weaver. And I use it almost like Jung's word association test. When they touch something deeper, the face changes. So they go from fantasy into real imagination, into Imaginative Movement, which Jung speaks. And you can see that through either the breathing stops, they change the direction of the head, they are breathing more, they're looking down, something shifts. So when I'm writing, sometimes I miss these points. And sometimes I let the observers to look at this if they are kind of seasoned observers, because that makes a big difference to know at which level the group or the participant or the weaver is allowing themselves to be immersed in it, rather than remaining on some kind of level, maybe superficial level. So that's also one of the drawbacks. Of course, with experience, and again, it depends on how many participants you have. If you have 8, it's one thing. If you have 15, it can be tiring as well to write, so these are some things which you need to be aware of.
Great,
Thank
thank
you
you.
so much, Leonard. See Rosie's hand up.
There is Rosie. Yeah.
Oh,
Hi,
hello
Rosie.
there.
How are you?
Thank you. I'm not a therapist, but so I don't necessarily have questions on that front particularly, but I found it really fascinating. And there are parallels with kind of screenwriting because, of course, we do work in groups. There's that kind of group working together on storytelling, and I don't think they ever sort of think about it in therapeutic way. You might think, oh yes, there'll be triggers and things. Generally, you're trying to get from A to B and write a cohesive story. But what I really liked about this method was that you're trying to avoid the typical story quite often when you do group work. It's about stimulating new ideas that are fresh and which you wouldn't have come up with on your own. And what I really liked was obviously the emphasis on each person owning their section of the story, that they have to sort of make it interesting. So you actually have quite a very interesting non-typical story that's being created. Well, that was what I was struck by the example that you gave, is that they weren't mundane sections. It seemed like stuff was happening. And I thought that was really interesting in terms of maybe being a way to use it in storytelling,
Yes.
to get
Yes.
out of that way of just being too rote and typical, because I've really been trying to work on that, using different ways to break up the narrative when I'm working on my own, like, using index cards or trying to think of those scenes that I really want to see and not worrying about whether it makes logical sense. But yeah, I could see how this would also really bring a group together if you were working on a storyline, doing something a little bit like this, obviously not therapy, but in the context of writing stories could really make a team very cohesive. So really fascinating. So much. What a brilliant method. Thank you for sharing.
Thanks, Rosie, for being here and for your comments. Yes, creativity, it's you can see how the narrative usually is very creative and how characters develop. And from the next dream circle, maybe some characters will again reappear. So it becomes like a new chapter, almost a second chapter, but then with reference this to earlier characters. So yeah, it's something which surprises everyone, surprises the group. And yeah, the idea of storytelling, dreaming, you have Fellini, the director of films, and dreaming is and many other out there uh, directors now who use dreaming also in their script writing. So, but thanks for that connection, Rosie.
Thank you so much. So this is the last call for any comments or questions. Jill.
Yes. I have a question. You mentioned something just briefly about when they put the pictures together at the end. I think you referred to it, said, it kind of could be like a mandala. Um, can you just explain
Carpet.
a little further on that as far as I know it's the symbol of wholeness, and so
Yes.
you're putting it together, but just give me a little bit more about that.
Yes. Yes. Because again, the idea of drawing is again kind of shifting and bringing something from the visualized imagination into a tangible format, into an expressive format which is tangible. So that in itself, again, you're helping them to bring this out. And again, since you're putting it after another, the first, the second, and third, all the pieces are coming together. But the sum is bigger than the parts, so to say. And again, by looking at their own bits, but at how the story is unfolding, the colors, the methods, something else can come to the fore. They can have different associations. Yes, I called it like a mandala because they are putting everything together, and it helps them also to reflect. So that is the idea of linking it to a Jungian mandala, kind of to say. Because mandalas are also found in carpets, especially in Oriental carpets. Usually you have um, I don't know, the Heris, for example, the Persian carpet of the Heris has this diagonal shape, for example. And many other styles of carpets have this kind of formats where there's usually something in the middle. The Kashan, for example, as well. Um, they symbolize almost the word, the four corners of the word, no? And there is something in the center. So carpets as well are very much related to mandala symbolism, especially the Oriental ones, which I find to be fascinating with the symbolic material.
Thank you.
Welcome.
That's very beautiful. And yes, I mean, as you were speaking, Leonard, I couldn't help but also thinking of the whole web or the mandala of people,
Interrelation.
of different, yes, of entering, the porous imaginal realm that can be exposed as such through these exercises.
Yes.
So it's brilliant, very beautiful. And thank you so much for sharing it with us, Leonard. It was a huge honor for us to have you with us today.
It
And
was an
yeah,
honor for
also,
me. Invited.
thank you so much. So for the second part, we will be having a little break now, so a 5-minute break. If anyone has a creative piece to share, whether it's a piece of writing, could be poetry, could be prose, could be whatever you like, or maybe even a piece of art, we'll be very happy to give each a 5-minute slot. So if you would like to participate, please leave your name in the chat box, and then Sarah and I will call on you. And if you don't want to read anything, but you just want to enjoy the creative works, please stay here and sit back and enjoy. And of course, Leonard, you too, feel free to join us if you have the time. That would be really lovely. And if you've got anything creative, we'd love to have that here. Do you have any poetry?
I'll listen. I will listen today.
Okay.
It's another time.
All
Yeah.
right. Okay. So, 5 minutes, we take a little screen break and then we'll be
Yes.
back.
Yes. Thank you.
Most people would just
It was very
Sarah, are you reading anything today?
I have something that I could share,
Amazing.
and we have some beautiful
Oh,
things coming through in the chat.
yeah, I was just having a look now. Some lovely paintings. That's beautiful. Hmm. Oh, wow. Love these, Jocelyn. Hmm. Okay, so Jocelyn and Udena, you can feel free to share your screens if you like, and if you just prefer keeping them in the chat box, that's also okay. But yes, please do by all means. So Jocelyn, we'll start with you if you'd like to speak a little bit about these lovely bracelets.
Thank you. Yeah, the idea came about many years ago when I was doing family work. I was supporting Indigenous families here in Mohkinstsis, Calgary, where I live in Canada. And they were navigating the legal system trying to get their children back out of care. And because of the anxiety that a lot of folks experience navigating these systems, which are very different to the communities that they live and come from, it started with just bracelets because people wanted something to touch and to hold on to. And from there, um, I began to use it as a therapeutic storytelling tool with groups and with individuals. So, because eye contact can be a real challenge in the communities that I work in, and being of European descent. And so, this was a wonderful way of working with people and supporting them in telling their strong stories, some of the stories that get left out in the systems that I work in. And I also teach at a university, and I found it to be a really great teaching tool because in the classroom, how we can use it is we have one group of folks that are using the beads to create the bracelet. There's another group that is drawing the story, and another group that enjoys words and they're writing the story. So as I'm kind of like interviewing someone or doing a narrative questions and discussion about a certain topic, we have lots of people recording the story in different ways, and we bring the drawings, the words, and the bracelets. We bring that all together into sort of therapeutic documents to challenge the colonial system that I work within here. Yeah, so we just call them storytelling bracelets. They're just for people to tell their stories, and they can either wear them so they can start to embody those strong stories, or some people like to just hang them as a reminder. Thank you.
And they're so
Beautiful.
beautiful. And the symbols, like, they're so powerful. The symbols, the colors, everything. It's, yeah, I'm pretty sure they would spark many stories. Thank you, Jocelyn. And next up, we have Udena.
Hi, everyone. So the paintings are actually, I don't even know how to describe it. I think they were just images that I saw in my vivid dreams, and I kind of
Mm.
tried to put them on paper or canvas rather. And one thing evolved to another, and fast forward a couple of years later, right now, from the time that I did that painting. It's been a couple of years, and right now I'm working with migrant women. So I don't know if it's got anything to do with that, or I don't believe symbolisms are just there for nothing. So there, I do believe it was some kind of a, navigational tool in the unknown, in the psyche. Yeah. So yeah, and
That is so beautiful.
yeah, and I am working with
Really
a lot of women
beautiful.
right now. Thank you.
Mm. How wonderful. And how long have you been working on these for, Udena?
Um, well, I've been painting for over 20 years. But I've
Oh,
started doing workshops as a community-based activity in the past 2 years. Yeah.
mm-hmm.
I actually have
Mm-hmm.
one of these paintings next to me as I'm sitting in my studio. I don't
Oh,
know. I don't know how much of this you could see. But yeah, it's quite big.
yeah, it's a little blurry, but if
Right.
you move it a little
Exactly.
bit back, yeah, I think that would should do the trick.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much,
Thank
Adana. This
you.
is really gorgeous.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. And anyone else in the audience would like to give it a shot? Art, poetry, other forms of writing. Lorna, do you have anything today?
Um, no, but I think there's a lot to talk about in this what we've seen so far.
Huh?
There's a really beautiful, um, well, just a real beauty in the and also sadness in the
Yeah.
painting of the woman, and also a lot of sort of hope and joy in her headdress as well. And there's a lot going on. I think I can't the one above her, is that one yours as well, or is that, let's see.
Um,
Yeah. Okay.
yeah.
There are three that you've shown us.
Yes.
Yeah. Do you want to talk a little bit more about the actual paintings, the stories in them?
Actually, the very last one was the very first painting of these three. It's a series of
Hmm.
three. Actually, there's more, but these are the ones that I've just retrieved right now. Um, and a lot of them were vivid dreams.
Mm-hmm.
So it's I guess I was thinking a lot about nature, but also myself, and I was in a period of transition between countries, and um, I was trying to do something different, completely different in my life from what I've done over a decade ago. So it was a period of transition also for me.
Mm-hmm.
And my eating habits also changed during that time. I went from being a pescatarian to a vegan, and then I sort of bounced back from one or the other, just trying to see what works for me in every aspect, not just physically, but also like spiritually, just doing some cleansing work and hmm, yeah, and then yeah.
And
I guess I also wanted to work with community, but I was during that period of time I was morbidly shy, so I could not bring myself to work with a community of people, although I really wanted to. But I was able to crack that off, and I'm just looking at the date now. The date's somewhere around like 2016 or 17, and it's been 10 years. So I'm a very different person now than I was 10 years ago.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I love working with people, community, and it brings me a lot of joy. It's soul work. It's very fulfilling, very colorful.
Mm.
Uh, yeah,
And the
And I must say the colors are just so beautiful. They're very bright.
thank you.
and the textures as well.
Mhm.
Hmm.
And some of them are very sharp, and some of them are very sort of dreamlike and floating into
Hmm.
or away from. When
Right.
when you say they come from dreams, are they someone you've seen in the dream, and or you as well, or
Never. Most of these people that I see in my dreams, I have never met before. Not consciously, at least. I've never met them.
yeah.
It's very it's a little bit I don't really know what's the word. I don't have the vocabulary for it, but it's like sometimes I meet them in the dreams first and then I meet them in real life,
Mm,
or sometimes I just don't. Or I have this deja vu moments where I feel like I've seen you somewhere, but definitely not in this realm.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
but they come through in the form of paintings or yeah,
yeah.
usually paintings is
Mm,
yeah, I write journals a lot, but that's not something I advertise, but yeah,
yeah.
paintings is what people see most of. Mhm.
Sometimes previous lives.
Yeah. Yeah.
And with the middle one is more like a mandala sort of painting, is it?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That one's more about like the symbol of community, like as we were talking earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought it'd be
Yeah, that
interesting
struck
since
me.
we're talking about mandalas now, I just threw it in there since I already have it.
And the bracelets, I was thinking that there's a power, somehow powerful, possibly more powerful altogether in those six together, in community. There seems to be a strong power to them, with possibly more than the one on its own. And then of course each tiny little piece is a story, is part of a larger story, or even life, I guess.
I didn't understand, Jocelyn, if you give it to them or they do it themselves.
I provide all the materials. I have these trays and kits of beads in different textures, patterns, colors, and so there's no limitations there. I use the spiral because the spiral symbolically, for time and movement, and to allow imaginative pieces to come into it. So the spiral itself has some symbolism in which they're creating it on. And because of where I'm located, we always start with storying our relationship to the land is very important here. So it always begins with the beads. People start storing their relationship to the land first, and then there's just some narrative, like storytelling prompts, but people get lost in the action and the movement, and sometimes they'll even use I have some semi-precious stones too mixed in. And so then there's this dual story happening. So if we write up the story, it'll be in their words, but there may be another meaning to a certain stone that they picked. It too may come into the conversation and bring its own meaning. And then at the end of it, if there are any elders present or knowledge keepers or anyone in the group, they will make an offering to the bracelet so that there's part of the collective story there.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
So
I see we
lovely.
have Rosie said she has something that she could read, I think.
Yeah, I thought that was beautiful about the bracelets. It sort of reminds me of people using them as memory, those knots that people would tie to try and remember. But yeah, I can really imagine getting kind of into the tactile feeling of some of those beads and getting lost, as you say, in between those different realms. And it kind of made me think, Lana, of what you were saying about containment, the drawing, doing it through a different storytelling, through a different medium kind of thing. It's really interesting. I do have a flash. I don't write flash fiction normally, but I went on a course a few years ago, and it's short. It's one of the shorter things, so I won't read you a script, but some of this is a bit embarrassing, and but I'm happy enough to share it with you, since you're all therapists and you're used to all this subconscious stuff. So okay, I'll read to you. Okay. There is an office where all my previous jobs are stored. Occasionally, I return like the prodigal daughter to the grey carpet. Can you hear me? Do you hear?
Yes.
Perfect. Yeah.
Sorry. The grey carpeted. I'll stick it in as well, just in case. I cut out, I'll just stick it in the thingy, and then maybe I can see your faces as well. Just maybe that'll make it easier and I won't worry that I'm losing you. Or shall I share? Shall I share my screen? Ah, here we go. Maybe I can do that. There we go. That's it. This one. Here we go. Oh, can I read it all right? I think I have to move that. Yeah. Okay. Okay. There is an office where all my previous jobs are stored. Occasionally, I return like the prodigal daughter to the grey carpeted corridors where my old colleagues remain working at their desks. Nobody is surprised to see me. They don't even look up as the yellowing desktop computer beeps and reboots in safe mode. But last night, my bald-headed boss, now aged, hugged me into a scuffed leather swivel chair. It is at the same time comforting to know that there is always a spot for me in this cubicled workship, as well as some other unidentifiable emotion, a nameless one that hates to return to these places of thwarted ambition. Does body-mind control exist? If that man hadn't touched my arm in the gym with his "I'll show you how to do those reps" chat and his enormous pecs, I'd not be all dreamy-eyed like a drunk mermaid. Note to self, is this what they call mansplaining? Why are new ideas more attractive than old? Magpies collect shiny knickknacks, while sentences are barely strung together, worthless gewgaws, beads on a necklace. I walk in that graveyard any moment I can. If time does not exist, according to Einstein, I can believe it because it's 1992 whenever I want. That first-ish kiss, my fingers in his hair. I wonder what the tourists make of this klimped pose. Perhaps she's in mourning, they whisper. And that is apt. I am grieving for my lost self, the one still awaiting opportunity's knock. All that pent-up emotion, free to fritter on some unidentified love object. And if there is a poetry cafe in Ohio, I will actually go there one day. Oh yeah, I will surprise the nurse poet with one of my freshly minted story poems, and he will recognize himself in it, but he won't recognize me anymore. He never had a good memory for faces. He'll be confused, and maybe I'll leave him that way. He was the ladies' assistant hockey coach. He married a Greek woman. He gave up on becoming an English professor, and he has 2 daughters who are fair like mine. Sometimes I wink at men I fancy. It comes easily, but that was a long time ago now. The waitress should just ask him. I bite my tongue. It is in the end much easier to be direct about what you want. We play these odd games. So much time and effort wasted. Does this soft mood lighting improve appearances? But the man sitting at the table adjacent, on seeing me pause from my keyboard tapping, asks me if I am a ghostwriter. No, sir, but I am a ghost.
That is brilliant. Thank you, Rosie. Very much enjoyed it.
Thank you, I'm glad.
And yeah, any other readings or showcasing of painting and other art forms? Sarah, I guess it's your turn.
Okay. Well, I don't know why, but when I was reading the description of this and sort of thinking just about the title, a dream that I have had in the past came to me and a piece of artwork that I did with it. So I was just going to read that dream and share this. This is a finger labyrinth that I made. It's collage and it has string around the edges. So it's a mandala and sort of a bit of a weaving, maybe there. And
Beautiful.
the dream was, I am making labyrinths everywhere. I'm creating them out of natural materials from the earth, as well as from ribbons, fabric, and paper. All of them are made to be impermanent, to return to nature in one way or another, but to be used in the meantime. The one I'm working on currently is on a triangular intersection in my old neighborhood. I'm making the labyrinth to be triangular also. It's made of stone and wood in the grassy island of the road and expands out into the gutter and pavement through chalk and charcoal drawn lines. Then the dream shifts, and I see that this is a worldwide phenomenon. Everyone is making labyrinths now. There's a website that's started where people can share pictures of their creations. The first picture is of the initial labyrinth, and then subsequent photos show how they've been taken back to the land. The ribbons bleach and fade and slowly disintegrate. Same with the paper and wood. The chalk and charcoal washes away in the rain. The stones eventually are knocked here and there. Moss, leaves, and mulch cover them. There are even ones made of snow and ice, which melt away with the coming of the sun. So that was the dream. And it felt, as I was listening to the presentation and hearing everybody's sharings here, it feels so poignant as to what we've all created in the space together and what Lanner has shared. So thank you for letting it have a voice also.
Wow, thank you so much, Sarah. It's so beautiful and so deep, and it's also, I mean, it's not, it's the colors in it and the whole mandala, as you said, is like a very peaceful labyrinth. It has this form.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. And anybody else? Come on.
I just wanted I just loved hearing the dream too, of the community labyrinth making all through the city, and
Yeah.
on traffic islands and melting, from the snow melting away over time, and the way that's weather and seasons affect the labyrinths as well. So I really enjoyed that. I could I could see it. I thought it was real, but then I said, no, no, it's a dream. It's a dream. But it is real.
Thank you. Um, so if nobody else wants to read anything or present anything, maybe I can share something in the end if
Yes,
everyone is ready to bear with me. Okay,
please
so
do.
let me just pull this out. So this was published a few days ago, and it's published in Margut, which is an Italian journal. Um, so let me share the screen. Can you see it?
Not yet.
Okay,
It's working
so
on it.
can you see it now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's called A Cedar Reenchanted.
Mm.
And it's a tribute to the cedar tree. For those of you who don't know me, I am Lebanese, and well, there's so much going on in Lebanon right now. I'm not going to go into the details, but yeah. So this is a tribute to the cedar tree, and it's called A Cedar Reenchanted. Slow the pulse until it learns the patience of rings, time written inward. They were growing while empires rehearsed collapse. They watched dyes bleed into water, heard prayer ferment into air, felt language lean against bark. I speak to you from here, you who carry the same mountain in your bones, each needle a compass we were born already holding, each cone a promise that return is not geography, but encounter. Has the world, distracted for centuries, suddenly remembered how to bring us together? We are each other. Even in exile, the scent follows us, in clothes folded too carefully, in songs our mothers hum without translation, Inside is the soft weeping of resin. How strange that strength should hurt, that endurance should remember. This is how the world re-enchants itself, through coincidence that insists, matter that speaks back, meetings older than memory. It reopens by allowing what we love to look at us in return. Wonder is devotion practiced slowly. And so I write you, under their long regard, a child of sap and syntax, trying to graft what is still becoming. They do not forget. Shade stretches across generations, offering shelter to whatever dares to stay open long enough for meaning to touch back. And thank you very much. So
Beautiful.
Lovely.
Beautiful.
thank you. Thank you all.
Amazing.
Thank you. I'm a tree hugger, and the cedar tree is, I guess, my favorite for many reasons. Also because it's a native of Lebanon, and the symbol of resilience, the symbol of eternity or almost eternity. Like cedar trees, some of them they've just existed since they've existed for thousands of years. So yeah. And thank you all so much again for bringing your beautiful vibes and creations to this space. And a special thanks to Lanner also for showing us the importance of dream weaving, not just as a technique, but hopefully, this is an articulation of maybe a hidden instinct, the instinct to be together, to tap into one another's imaginal realms, to create something together, something for a better world and something for better selves as well. So thank you so much. And we look forward to seeing all of you again very soon. We have so much going on. So we've got Psych Creative is every month. We've just started the 2026 Psych Creative with Leonard today, but we have another one coming next month. We also have two big conferences. And I think, yes, actually, so they're both still open for submissions if you need to propose anything. We have the Sacred Arts Conference on the 16th and 17th of May. I guess the last day is tomorrow to submit your proposal. And that one will be in Oxford and online. And we also have the Storytelling Conference on the 30th and 31st of May. And that is also in Oxford and online. We have Indelible, our journal. Well, sadly, the submissions window closed for the one coming next. So what we're going to do very soon is we're going to open the submissions window for number 11, which will be coming in the fall. So the one for the summer, it already finished, but you can still submit to the one in the fall. The theme, and we haven't announced it yet online, but the theme is chaos. So if you have any poems, if you have any art in whatever form, music, photography, other forms of visual art, you are very welcome to submit them to us. And the theme, I think, is very timely. It is living in all of us. And again, it reminds us of what Jung said, that in every chaos, there's a cosmos. So hopefully, we can create a better cosmos or get in touch with the cosmos through the chaos that is within and without. Wishing you all a lovely evening or a lovely morning or afternoon, depending on where you're joining us from. Sarah, thank you so much for the lovely co-hosting and co-piloting. Yeah, and see you all very soon. And summer school, if anyone is interested in joining us in London this summer. So applications close tomorrow. You can read more about it on our website, but we'd love to see you here in person if you can make it. And have a great day. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you, Rula.
Thank you all.